What if three Texans learned slide guitar from Jimi Hendrix in hotel rooms, then turned down $1 million to keep their beards? They burned AstroTurf into the shape of Texas and weaponized the blues for MTV. 15 million records sold. Then the set lists froze. The same songs, same slots, night after night for decades. Success became a cage they couldn't escape. This is how ZZ Top's greatest victory trapped them in their own past. Houston, 1969. Oil refineries pumping black gold through ship channels. Heavy industry forging blue-collar pride in the humid Texas heat. This is where three men decided to build something raw, dangerous, and real. Billy Gibbons wasn't some kid who stumbled into music. His father was an entertainer who arranged percussion lessons with Latin icon Tito Puente when Billy was just a boy. But the moment that changed everything, watching B.B. King record in a studio. That's when Gibbons understood what the blues could do, how it could reach inside your chest and rewire everything you thought you knew about feeling. By 1966, Gibbons had formed Moving Sidewalks, a psychedelic outfit that caught fire in Houston with the hit 99th Floor. They opened for the Doors. They opened for the 13th Floor Elevators. They were earning their stripes in the Texas circuit, learning how to command a stage and hold an audience's attention when the sweat was dripping and the beer was flowing. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. But the defining moment came in 1968, when Moving Sidewalks opened for the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Hendrix and Gibbons stayed in hotel rooms across from each other, and rumor has it that Hendrix showed Billy a few tone tricks during their tour together. Hendrix also showed him how he'd modified his Fender Stratocaster's 3-way toggle switch into a 5-way configuration, unlocking in-between tones that nobody else could touch. Hendrix even praised Gibbons playing on national television. The exact words have become urban legend, but the respect was real and it was public. Then came Vietnam. Tom Moore and Don Summers, Gibbons' bandmates in Moving Sidewalks, were drafted into the Army. The band dissolved. But Gibbons wasn't done. He recruited bassist Lanier Gregg and drummer Dan Mitchell to form the first version of ZZ Top in 1969. The name itself was a branding exercise. Gibbons admired B.B. King and ZZ Hill, and initially considered ZZ King, but settled on ZZ Top because, as he put it, King is at the top. After some lineup shuffling, the definitive trio crystallized. Frank Beard, the drummer, recommended his former bandmate from American Blues, a bassist and vocalist named Dusty Hill. Interestingly, before their fame, Beard and Hill had actually masqueraded as members of the British band, the Zombies, just to secure gigs. That was the hustle required in the early Texas circuit. You did what you had to do to play. The early sound of ZZ Top was a direct product of the Texas environment. This was the epicenter of the oil boom, a world of refineries and ship channels, and the kind of blue-collar swagger that didn't apologize for anything. Their first album, released in 1971, was titled simply First Album, a conscious statement that more would follow. Recorded at Robin Hood Studios in Tyler, Texas, the album prioritized raw blues boogie, emphasizing feel over polish, irreverent humor over pretension. This was the blueprint. 3 Texans, 1 sound, no shortcuts. Success didn't arrive overnight. ZZ Top earned it the hard way. 1 bar, 1 club, 1 sweaty stage at a time. By 1972, their second album, Rio Grande Mud, was expanding their reach across the South. The single Francine climbed to number 69 on the Billboard charts. It wasn't massive, but it was progress. It was momentum. Then, 1973 arrived with Tres Hombres. And everything changed. The album peaked at number 8 on the Billboard 200. The centerpiece was La Grange, a John Lee Hooker-inspired boogie about a famous Texas brothel known as the Chicken Ranch. That opening guitar riff, instantly recognizable, hypnotic, dangerous, became a staple of FM radio and the soundtrack to a generation of Texas pride. The recording of Tres Hombres was marked by a fortuitous accident. A studio mishap merged the tracks, Waitin' for the Bus and Jesus Just Left Chicago. Manager Bill Ham heard the mistake and insisted they keep it. That accidental transition became one of the most famous segues in rock history. A perfect example of how sometimes the best art emerges from chaos. This era established the band's aesthetic: rhinestone cowboy gear, fierce Texas identity, and a connection to the blue-collar audience that valued earned success over manufactured hype. They weren't trying to be sophisticated. They were trying to make you feel something real. Their growing reputation as a live act reached its peak on a scorching day in 1974. The Texas-size rompin' stompin' barn dance and barbecue at the University of Texas at Austin brought nearly 80,000 fans to Memorial Stadium. The temperature hit nearly 100 degrees. Santana, Joe Cocker, and Bad Company were on the bill, but ZZ Top headlined. They were the kings of Texas, and everyone knew it. The logistics were chaotic. Food and water sold out by early afternoon. Desperate fans tore sinks from bathroom walls just to get a drink. But the most enduring legacy of that day? The destruction of the stadium's newly installed AstroTurf. Overzealous fans burned it and cut it into the shape of Texas. The damage was so severe that the stadium banned large-scale concerts for the next 20 years. The Worldwide Texas Tour pushed the mythology even further. The band traveled with a Texas-shaped stage and a menagerie of live animals: buffalo, steer, and rattlesnakes. It was a spectacle. It was showmanship. It was everything rock and roll was supposed to be before the industry sanitized it. But the intensity of 7 years of non-stop touring extracted its price. By 1977, the band was exhausted. Frank Beard was struggling with drug problems that would require rehab. The machine had to stop before it destroyed them. They took a 3-year hiatus, and during that break, something unexpected happened. Billy Gibbons and Dusty Hill, independently and without planning, both grew chest-length beards. Years later, they'd describe it as laziness, just not bothering to shave during their time off. But that accidental decision would become the most powerful visual trademark in rock history. The 1980s didn't just change ZZ Top. It transformed them into something unprecedented. After signing with their record label, they released Deguello in 1979, debuting their new bearded look and signaling a shift toward a more polished, humorous style. The song Cheap Sunglasses hinted at what was coming, a band ready to embrace modernity without abandoning their roots. With 1981's El Loco, they began experimenting with synthesizers and drum machines, influenced by watching a Devo's soundcheck and listening to British electronic acts like Depeche Mode. Critics were skeptical, purists worried, but Gibbons understood something crucial. The blues had always evolved, and refusing to evolve was a death sentence. Then came 1983 and Eliminator. Working with pre-production engineer Lyndon Hudson, Gibbons analyzed popular dance tracks and discovered that a tempo of approximately 124 beats per minute was the sweet spot for hit potential. This wasn't guesswork, it was science. They weaponized their sound for the MTV era, creating machine-stable rhythms and a full bed of sound with synthesizers that allowed Gibbons' guitar to cut through like a razor. The visual component was equally calculated. Director Tim Newman created a distinct universe for their music videos, featuring the Eliminator, a customized 1933 Ford Coupe, and a trio of mysterious women who became as iconic as the band itself. Gimme All Your Lovin', Sharp-Dressed Man, and Legs weren't just songs. They were cultural moments, playing on MTV in endless rotation, transforming ZZ Top from a Texas bar band into global pop stars. Eliminator eventually sold over 11 million copies in the United States alone. In 1984, the Gillette Razor Company offered Gibbons and Hill $1 million each to shave their beards for a Super Bowl commercial. They declined. Gibbons later said seeing himself clean-shaven in the mirror would be too close to a Vincent Price film. The beards had become non-negotiable. They were the brand. But beneath the triumph, something subtle was shifting. Producer Bill Ham and engineer Terry Manning were increasingly replacing the contributions of Dusty Hill and Frank Beard with synthesizers and programmed drum tracks to achieve the locked pulse the new sound required. The band remained unified publicly, but the recording process was becoming less about three men playing together and more about constructing a precise, engineered product. The follow-up album, Afterburner in 1985 continued the formula. The tour set records for attendance and gross revenue. They were untouchable. They had won. But winning too big plants its own seeds of destruction. By the late 1980s, the ZZ Top look, the beards, the sunglasses, the hot rods, had become so ubiquitous that it began to overshadow the music itself. The visual brand was everywhere. Magazine covers, MTV, corporate endorsements. They were no longer just a band. They were an icon, a silhouette, a symbol. In 1987, they released the ZZ Top 6-pack, a CD box set of their early work. But instead of presenting the original bluesy mixes, they replaced them with digital, gated reverb versions designed to mimic the Eliminator sound. Fans were furious. The decision suggested that the band, or more accurately their management, believed the organic roots were no longer marketable without the 1980s digital sheen. Manager Bill Ham, who modeled himself after Colonel Tom Parker, had protected and controlled every aspect of the band's career for decades. He maintained a mystique of self-sufficiency that often obscured the reality of the recording process. Ham's contracts reportedly had a clause preventing band members from sitting in with other musicians, ensuring they were seen only as the unified, little old band from Texas. This control ensured a consistent brand, but it also locked them into a formula. The very success that brought them 15 million records sold had become a cage. The image was permanent. The sound was standardized. The expectation was set. And when you give audiences exactly what they expect, night after night, year after year, you stop being artists. You become a product. The 1990s marked diminishing returns. The 1990 album Recycler was accurately named. It sought to repeat the recipe of the previous albums, but with less inspiration. It produced hits like My Head's in Mississippi and Double Back. But critics noted the production felt stagnant, inspired but often boring. The band attempted to course-correct with 1994's Antenna, jettisoning synthesizers in response to the rise of grunge. They wanted to sound dirtier, more organic. But they remained reluctant to abandon the polished production techniques of the 80s. The result was music caught between two worlds, not raw enough to reclaim their blues roots, not modern enough to compete with the alternative rock explosion. As the 2000s approached, ZZ Top transitioned fully into legacy act status. Their concert set lists began to freeze. An analysis of their 2010 tour reveals a rigid structure where the same songs occupied the same slots night after night. Got Me Under Pressure opened the show. Lagrange closed the encore. Tush was the finale. This predictability was comfort for audiences. Fans knew exactly what they were getting. But it signaled something darker, a complete retreat from artistic risk. The band that had once pushed boundaries, that had reinvented themselves for MTV, that had taken blues rock and weaponized it for the modern age, was now simply going through the motions. In 2006, after nearly 40 years, the band terminated their contract with manager Bill Ham. No reasons were publicly given, but the timing was revealing. A decade of declining cultural relevance. A decade of creative stagnation. The separation marked the end of an era, but it didn't lead to renewal. It led to more of the same. The tragedy of ZZ Top's fall isn't that they crashed. It's that they survived so successfully that survival became the only goal. New albums came and went, overshadowed by the hits everyone already knew. Tours continued, but the setlist remained frozen. The past wasn't just a chapter anymore, it was the entire book. In the final decade of Dusty Hill's life, the band attempted one more Reclamation project. Producer Rick Rubin, a devotee of the band's cooler blue flame, took them into the studio for what would become 2012's La Futura. The recording process lasted 4 years. Rubin utilized a painstaking approach, sometimes having the band play a single song for 5 hours, only to later admit he'd captured the perfect take hours earlier and simply enjoyed hearing them play. La Futura was praised for its focus and the prominence it gave to Dusty Hill's skull-crushing bass lines. It reached the top 10 on the charts. Critics called it their best work in decades, but it also had an uncanny quality, sounding at times like ZZ Top imitating themselves, or like the modern bands that had originally imitated ZZ Top, now being imitated back. The album was a critical success, but it didn't lead to a new era of creativity. Instead, the band returned to the familiar cycle: consistent touring, playing the legendary songs to aging audiences who sought the comfort of the familiar. Then came July 28, 2021. Dusty Hill died in his sleep at his home in Houston. He was 72 years old, struggling with chronic bursitis that had plagued him for years. The 50-year lineup, recognized by Guinness World Records as the longest-running rock band with the same members, was over. In accordance with Hill's wishes, the band did not disband. They recruited their longtime guitar tech, Elwood Francis, to take over bass duties. Francis had grown his own impressive beard, fitting the aesthetic perfectly. Billy Gibbons noted that the show must go on, and it did. But something fundamental had ended. The brotherhood that had survived 5 decades of touring, creative shifts, and industry pressures was broken by the one thing none of them could control: time. The story of ZZ Top is not a story of financial ruin or public scandal. It's something more nuanced, more ironic, and in some ways more tragic. It's the story of a band that won so completely in the 1980s that they became prisoners of their own success. Their visual silhouette, beards, hats, sunglasses, is as recognizable as their music. Their influence on Southern rock and the blues revival of the 21st century is unquestioned. They sold over 50 million records worldwide. They proved that 3 Texans with a commitment to the blues could conquer the world. But by the mid-1990s, they had become a caricature of themselves. The beards that started as laziness became a corporate identity. The sound that revolutionized MTV became a formula they couldn't escape. The Texas swagger that once felt dangerous became a comfortable routine where safety replaced risk and stability replaced ambition. ZZ Top remains a source of immense pride. They represent a time when rock and roll was synonymous with hard work, authenticity, and a certain brand of unbothered cool. Their legacy is defined not by their final albums, but by the memory of 3 men delivering a raw blues sound that once felt like it could power the world. ZZ Top teaches us that sometimes the greatest threat to artistic evolution isn't failure, it's overwhelming success. When you create something so powerful, so iconic, so universally beloved that it defines you completely, how do you move forward? How do you risk that legacy for something uncertain? The answer, it seems, is that most don't. They settle into the golden era they built for themselves, playing the hits that made them legends, giving audiences exactly what they came for. It's comfortable, it's safe, it's profitable, but it's not the same as living. ZZ Top gave us unforgettable music and proved that Texas blues could conquer the world. But their greatest story might be what happens when success becomes too powerful to escape. They didn't fall apart. They simply stopped moving forward, choosing comfort over risk, repetition over reinvention. Their legacy endures in every La Grange riff played on classic rock radio. But the question remains, did they stay too long in the past, or did they earn the right to live there? What's your take? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from rock's greatest era.